Today, we discuss buys, players we want on our contending rosters. We're going to give you 6 running backs, 6 wide receivers, 3 quarterbacks, and 3 tight ends. Whether you're balling on a budget or you're looking to add a cornerstone asset that will also help you in a championship, stick around for all that and more. And welcome into the Dyno Construction Podcast. Justin, David, and JP. Very thankful for all of our contending teams that we are looking to add players to. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you have not. We here are very thankful for all of our listeners. So we're going to start our contending buys episode here by listing some contending buys that we asked for from our players last week. So last week we asked, who's your favorite target for the playoff run and what are you paying for them? David, gonna have you read our first reply here.
End of the show, Awesome Dumpling. I'd be looking to grab Diggs, Devontae, or Dowdle for anywhere around that 2 seconds price. Killer D's there, huh?
You know, he might have meant to do that. He's a smart guy. And JP, can you go ahead and read our friend David Covington's reply?
From David Covington, he says here, is Javonte still on the wrong team? Might as well check if he's less than a first. Yeah, that's a good call out. And I mean, if there's a rebuilder that has Javonte, they probably want to move him right now.
And last listener reply, friend of the show, Kyle Clota, kind of a long one. I found Pickens is on a lot of non-competitive teams, so he's definitely a target. Dart throws on younger RBs behind old vets on teams that don't have a future, like Devin Neal on New Orleans, who has a nice playoff schedule. And for what it's worth, Kyle said this before this kind of Kamara injury last week. And then I think JP should buy ETN for Lether Burden, but he won't. Yeah, I think he should too. It's really weird he won't. And Darnell Mooney with Kirko change could come back to life. Interesting as well. JP, any reply on the Luther Burden for ETN?
I think Luther Burden's a buy. That's kind of the reason I won't, because I think he's a big time buy. And maybe come week 15 and I need a start. Sure. Maybe then if Burden hasn't broken out and ETN still has that role, all right, maybe then I'll go ahead and do it.
I hear you. And for next week, if you want to be featured on our show, we're going to be doing a 2026 rookie mock draft, 2 rounds. We want to know who is your 101 and why. So would love to hear from you in the replies on our YouTube video here, or hit us up at DynoConFF on X if you are listening via any other method. All that being said, we are going to go ahead. We're going to hop right into our buys. So how we're going to do this, again, we told you we're going to give you 6 running backs, 6 wide receivers, 3 tight ends, 3 quarterbacks. For what it's worth, all scoring we're doing is 1.75 tight end premium, no additional changes, so full PPR for any other position, 6-point passing touchdown for QBs. As far as all of that goes, we are going to be talking about playoff schedules, whether or not they're favorable. We're simply going off of the sleeper format for that when we're talking about how they're color coded, green, light green, orange, red, etc. for kind of where you're at in either top, bottom, or in one of the middle quartiles as far as matchups go. We're going to have a fantastic graphic up where we're going to talk about premium buys, which are we're looking for a cornerstone asset, somebody that will be a member of your team for years to come, but will also help you win a championship this year is going to be the first thing we're going to define. And David, we're going to have you read our first player from that tier of buys.
We did come to consensus on all these names, but Jackson Dart actually is a great player for me to start with. Something I've been talking about as we've been preparing for this, especially if I'm going to swing big. I want to buy someone who's not just a rental. I want someone with some long-term value. So the first name we're going to talk about here is quarterback Jackson Dart. Looks like he should be back from his concussion next week. A little risky just because you never know for sure until he actually clears the protocol, but all indications are that he will. Also has a week 14 bye, which is not great. Something else just want to mention real quick. A few of these guys have week 14 buys. Be mindful. If you're fighting for your playoff lives, don't buy these guys with week 14 buys. But if you're in a good position, you might actually be able to get a decent discount on these guys because of that buy. So it just depends on your positioning. But with all that out of the way, let's actually talk about Jackson Dart himself. Weeks 4 through 10, he's the QB1 in total points. I have QB3 in points per game. But if you look at the graphic, we have QB1 there on a season-long basis. That points per game would be QB1. Take that with a grain of salt. It's a very small sample size. Well, it's about half the sample size compared to the rest of that group right now just because of his injury and it took him a few weeks to start. He's got 50 plus rush yards or 1 rush touchdown every week he started. 4 of those 7 weeks he's done both. And look, long term, I think he is going to be a massive buy this offseason. He's getting Neighbors coming back, Scatabo coming back. Going to have to be a really attractive spot for a coach. So we got a decent schedule. We've got a guy who's been scoring a ton of points when he's been playing. We just saw Jameis Winston score a ton of points in his absence. So I think he's set up for a nice stretch run, and I think he's going to help your team long term. So we kind of went back and forth on this number here. I think I'm willing to pay about 3 firsts for him, to be honest, guys.
Yeah, I think I'm the main voice that pushed back on that 3-point price, or at least I'm the first one that did sequentially in our group chat. To me, 3 firsts is just kind of tough. I'm just worried about his longevity. I'm worried about I'm not worried about the skill level of the player. I'm just worried about the hits that he takes, the way that he plays. I don't remember who it was. I think it was an old quarterback was saying something along the lines of he needs to change his playing style or he's going to wind up in concussion protocol, and then he wound up in concussion protocol. It's just, can he make those changes? Yes. I don't know. I've been worried watching him play. He doesn't seem like someone who's really long for the league in the way that he plays, but yet the way that he plays, I think, is what makes him so special. So I guess I'm a little worried about that kind of flash in the pan thing going on there. I still think he's a fantastic player and a fantastic buy. That's just a little rich for my price. I'm willing to pay a couple firsts, and the second probably is about what I'm willing to pay for him. I think he'd be my QB1 in next year's draft at this point. Like, I feel pretty comfortable saying that. Like, fantastic player, fantastic buy. I just kind of disagree on the 3 firsts plus price point, but the value gain potential from that price point is there. Like, he could be bought at that price and still appreciate another first in value.
Yeah, no, I mean, with the points per game, he really could help you win a championship. And if he does continue to do that 25 points per game, yeah, I think his value will be set to rise, especially if he gets hurt again and he doesn't produce as well. Yeah, I think he could really lose some more value for sure. But hey, I mean, he's got like a rushing touchdown in every single game. And I feel like at least at the goal line, they'll at least probably use him in those high leverage situations. So I definitely think that he's a good buy here.
Then our next player that we have as a buy is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of my Detroit Lions, a guy who has been absolutely phenomenal so far this season. 19.8 points per game puts him at wide receiver 5. The thing that I really like about him down the stretch is, as sad as it is to see Sam Laporta out for the rest of the season, what I think that kind of does from a target share standpoint for him is just good things, right? The whole issue with that team, right, was the number of mouths to feed out there. There's JMO, St. Brown, and then, of course, Laporta, and then Montgomery and Gibbs. And there was just a little bit too much. But what we're seeing right now is it's kind of getting funneled into 3 players almost, right? Monty has been kind of fading out of the offense a bit. RIP. I have a lot of exposure, makes me sad, but I also have a lot of Amon-Ra, and it's all going to those 3 players right there. And this offense could not support 5 players, but it could support 3. And then pair that up with a Week 14 matchup against Dallas if you're looking to push to get into the playoffs, he's a guy who's going to help you get there. And then it's not a super favorable playoff matchup, but I don't really care because I know that he's capable of doing it in the playoffs against those guys. And he's 26 years old. He's going to be a fantastic player on your team for 3, 4, 5 more years. He's tied up in Detroit in a situation where he's still going to be that guy that is getting all of that over the field slot usage he has been. I'm willing to pay about 3 firsts. I struggle to pay a full 3 firsts for him. In a start 9, I'm absolutely doing it any day because the hammer is so much more important. In a start 11, 12, anything like that, any best ball format, I'm not really as excited about consolidating into him at that 3 first, but I'm very willing to pay 2 firsts and 2 seconds for him, even in that start 11 format, if I can afford to spend that without handicapping my team too much.
Yeah, if I feel like he's going to really, really give me a much stronger chance at winning a championship, I think I would be willing to do the 3 first, as long as one of them is in like a top 3 or 4 pick. Because, yeah, I mean, he's just been consistently great for a while. And like you said, the playoff matchup, it's not amazing, but the Laporta part, that's really the reason why we think he's a big buy. Because if you look at the last 4 weeks, Underdog Fantasy, their stats, they say Amon-Ra St. Brown, he was number 1 in expected points per game. So honestly, I would not be surprised if over the next 5 weeks he is the wide receiver 1 or 2 in that stretch. I think it's very much in the cards because Laporta is a red zone threat, and you take that out of the picture here, and Amon-Ra, he's a great red zone threat. It kind of just makes me think that on third down, first read target share, and just red zone share, I think all that's just going to go up for Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, he's just a target monster, right? I think we're recording during Monday Night Football, so we don't have all of this week's data in, but he'll probably be top 5 in the NFL in targets come the end of the week. It's just a lot of cheddar to pay, right? He's 26. He's going to be closer to 27 come next year. He'll be 27 during the season. I think there are absolutely league settings and team situations where I could see paying 3 firsts, but I think in general, I'd probably not want to pay that much. I don't know. I think it's fair. There's a lot of settings where I couldn't do that.
So our next wide receiver here that we view as a buy here is George Pickens, who is one of the hottest wide receivers in the league. I mean, you look at his points per game, wide receiver 4. Who would have thought coming into the year? Hey, my bold prediction actually was he'd be top 15. Maybe I should have gone even bolder. I think, Justin, you were trying to bait me into going even higher, and I wouldn't do it, but man, if I did higher, I guess I would have been right. But I mean, part of it was the CeeDee Lamb injury. I just think he just fits Dak Prescott's play style so well. Because Dak, he likes to push the ball downfield. He likes to hunt for those big plays, and that's where Pickens excels. And we've seen that happen this year. The matchups in the first couple games of the playoffs do stink a little bit. I mean, if you do have a week 1 playoff bye, at week 15, you at least dodge one of those tough matchups. But for a guy who's only 24.7 years old and is a top 5 producer right now, if you can get him for anything less than 2 firsts, honestly, I think that is a really good deal because I expect that not a guarantee, but I expect that Jerry Jones and the Cowboys are going to want to bring this guy back. So I think that he's a phenomenal buy that could continue to ascend because at the end of the year, going into the offseason, I say, wow, this guy was wide receiver 5 on the year and he's only 25. Why isn't he valued closer to Amon-Ra, which we know it's partially the track record, but just from that narrative, I think his value could go up.
Been a monster this year. 4 top 4 weekly finishes, including each of the last 2 weeks. Week 1 was his only finish below wide receiver 28, so decent floor and ceiling. I just like having pieces of that Cowboys offense right now. Pickens might be the wide receiver 1 there. It's kind of hard to differentiate between him and CD right now. I mean, Pickens a little younger, CD's done it a little longer. But if they both stay long term, it's kind of a 1A, 1B, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of seems like it. I do think there's obviously the risk. If it was any franchise ran by any level of competency, I think you would just say they're going to lock him up. But this is Jerry Jones, right? And I've heard some people say, like, throw out the name like Kenny Galladay as a potential. I think this might have been the Ballers, actually. Just like, obviously, I think Pickens is a little bit more talented than Galladay was. He was a Lions wide receiver, a lot of touchdowns. But just the concept of he's phenomenal somewhere in a good situation, but if he hits the open market and gets that bag somewhere else, but the QB play is just really bad, I could easily see Pickens dropping off to a low end wide receiver 2, where if you're paying 2 firsts for that level of production, that really hurts your team quite a bit. So there's some risk, but I hope he stays there for the shares I have. That would be fun.
And just from Pickens' perspective, I feel like if I had my best year with Dallas and I had this great connection with Dak, after playing with some crappy quarterbacks, I think I'd probably want to come back. But, I mean, it's not a guarantee.
Certainly not a guarantee. Will be interesting to see. Jerry sometimes loves to pay his players. Sometimes he hates it. So we will find out. Next guy on this list here, another guy coming back from injury, Bucky Irving. We also think he should be back this week, though that one is much less certain than Jackson Dart, in my opinion. So there is a certain amount of risk involved with Bucky. But if you look at that schedule on the screen, it's mostly green starting this week. There's one tough matchup, well, somewhat tough, more of a medium matchup against New Orleans. And in that game, I could see them getting out to an early lead and leaning on the run game to bleed the clock a bit. So really, I feel like if he's healthy, he's going to really make a massive difference down this playoff stretch. If you happen to still be in position to make the playoffs with Bucky, good for you. And hopefully he's going to relieve some of the stress that he caused earlier in this year because he might win people some money.
Yeah, I'm not approaching like 2 firsts of value that I'm willing to pay for him, but a first and a second is something that I've been sending for him for a little while. It's not really getting it done. I almost feel like people, it's so weird in today's fantasy football world for people not to discount with an injury, because we look at so many other players this season. We've seen Burrow injury discount, Neighbors injury discount, right? But I haven't been able to buy low on Bucky Irving. People who have him love him. So it's been a struggle to actually add him. Are either of you willing to, if you have to pay to, say neither of them are They're both playoff firsts. Neither of them can miss the playoffs. Is there a world where you're ponying that up for Bucky and what you think he can do, not just this year, but going forward?
I need to see him back a week before I do that if I'm in a playoff push. I know there's some long-term value, but if I'm in a playoff push, I need those two firsts to help me right now. But I mean, I could see paying a first and a player maybe worth close to a first. Like, did you pay a playoff first in RJ Harvey? I know he's supposed to get the bulk of the workload, but I feel a lot more comfortable with Bucky Irving's production.
Yeah, that's absolutely a great way of composing that deal. I'd be happy to do that. JP, your kind of opinion on the topic?
Honestly, he might be my favorite buy when you're just looking at the price, the age, and the schedule. So you take that combination because, I mean, he was worth about 2 firsts in the offseason. And yeah, he did get injured. I think that's part of it. Maybe it is that he's smaller, but if he's been RB 8 points per game, 18 points per game, he might be at 20 points per game down the stretch with a really strong matchups in the playoffs, especially. And yeah, I don't see why he can't just climb right back up to 2 firsts unless he just really is not getting the workload that we saw before.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Next, running back by Devon Achane. So this guy is Jahmyr Gibbs light, is what people are calling him. He's that other guy that is a top 5 running back who sub 200 pounds, a lot of work in the passing game, young, and just gets it done fast, just incredible out of the passing game, can do it on the ground, breakaway runs, and he's a lot cheaper than Gibbs. Gibbs, you can't touch practically. Most people who have him aren't even going to consider moving him. I don't know if it's just the situation. I think that's a large part of it. There's still people who remember the Tua splits last year when Tua was out that caused him to be so much cheaper. I think, to be honest, it's the situation, right? But the schedule down the stretch, right? Cincinnati week 16, Tampa Bay week 17, both green matchups. And this is a guy that I don't care if it's a green matchup for running backs or not, because he's doing so much of it in the passing game. So I'm very willing to pay 2 firsts and a second for this guy. I don't think I'm quite at 3 firsts, but I just don't think I'm paying 3 firsts for any running back because I probably should. I just can't. I just struggle so much with it, man.
Yeah, I've embraced value in those really high end hammer young RBs. I mean, Achane here. If you have a first round playoff buy, he might be the best buy on the list. Just given that, because I mean, week 16 and 17, they're both green matchups. And they're both offenses in Cincinnati and Tampa Bay in both of those weeks where they have good offenses. So I think he's going to be involved as a receiver, and also he's going to be facing a weak defense. So that's with Joe Burrow back, and Higgins should be back by then, and Chase maybe doesn't spit in another guy's face. So yeah, I think that should be really juicy for Achane. I mean, he could probably have explosions in those 2 weeks. So I'm really happy to have him on one contender.
Yeah, another guy with a great floor and a great ceiling. An RB1 top 12 finish in 8 of 11 weeks this season, and his worst finish was RB17. For me, the question, it depends on league settings and team setting or team context, how big that plus is, but I could see anywhere from 2 to 3 firsts. I think kind of like Amon-Ra, there are certain times when I could see paying 3 firsts, but it'd have to be the right situation.
All right, well, let's move on to our last premium buy here, and we're going to move on to the tight end position. And we're talking cream of the crap right here. We're talking Trey Mc. His value is about 3+ firsts. We're talking 1.75 tight end premium, as Justin said at the top. 26 years old, which, especially for tight ends who seem to last a little bit longer than running back and wide receiver, the age does not scare me whatsoever. 23.8 points per game. I mean, sheesh, that's 4 points more per game than Amon-Ra, who is wide receiver 5 in points per game. Just to give you an idea of just how strong 23.8 points per game is, it's really incredible for your lineup. He is a true hammer, and I think he's got really long staying power. Like you said, David, at the top, this is a guy that if you pay up, he's going to be a cornerstone for a long time, and he's going to help you contend for the playoffs. And Jacoby Brissett has really brought a lot of I think to the intermediate and the deep passing game, he's brought a lot of life in particular. I think that's where Kyler struggles a little bit at times, especially in the middle of the field where I think Trey McBride dominates. I think it's also stressing defenses to have 2 safeties up top, and Michael Wilson, who has 2 100+ yard games when Marv has had 2 his whole career, I believe, which is crazy to me. With Marv coming back, I think it's still going to be great for Trey McBride. So yeah, I would love to buy him if I've got the ammunition, or I've got some young players and some picks I can, combined to get Trey McBride. I think he's somebody you definitely want to target.
Yeah, if we're taking cost out of it, he's my favorite buy. And not that I'm like not willing to pay this price. Just if you're assuming you can afford whatever price, give me Trey McBride. Look, in our standard DynoCon league settings, 175 tight end premium, he's 5.1 points per game higher than tight end 2. That means no matter who you're facing in your playoff matchup, your tight end position, you have a 5-point advantage at least. That's crazy. He's over 20 points in his last 6 games in those settings. So you want to win money, go get Trey McBride. He'll help you win a championship.
Yeah, it's just a matter of cost and what it takes to do. But if you have the flexibility to do that, like if I'm moving my 26, 27, and 28 firsts plus another second to do it, I really have to look at just like the way that I'm hamstringing my roster to do it. Is it worth it? Honestly, still maybe. Who knows? I'm probably not pulling the trigger on it. But the great thing about McBride as that guy that you're buying in that situation is I think he's going to retain this value. Even if he ends up getting injured, I think he'll come back at 27, then 28, and then still he's a good investment. It is a lot to pour into a player. Make sure you have the flexibility to do that and you still have something to plug other holes if they pop up. Is really that's the caveat for all of these players, right? I think, guys, is these are more expensive buys. If that's all of the ammo that you have, you don't have a guy. If you're buying Bucky Irving and you're starting him instead of, let's say, like Jalen Warren, who's fallen off a little bit, you still have Jalen Warren to put back in your lineup, for example, right? So say Bucky, something happens, right? You have another player to put into that flex spot if another player goes down, etc., right? But if you're buying this player and he's your last starter, and if he goes down, you have nothing left, then we're probably going to say, instead of putting all of that into here, because injuries probably will happen, we might recommend going with a lower end buy. And so we're going to recommend some guys next that are going to be in the neighborhood of a playoff first, early second, something like that. We're going to call these guys our more affordable buys because these are assets more people will be able to typically approach. And David, can you go ahead and read our first affordable buy?
Sure. We'll start with Dak Prescott. We're looking at the schedule. There's a couple of decent matchups, but a couple of tough ones. Kind of tossing that out the window with this Cowboys offense. They are putting up points. Dak is QB3 each of the last 2 weeks, has 28 or more points per game in 6 of the last 8 weeks. Third in the NFL in pass attempts, at least 29 pass attempts in every single game this year. So the volume is there. They are going to be chucking it around, trying to win some games, trying to catch up to some of these teams. A couple of matchups I'm a little worried about, but man, for the price that we're talking here, a late first, you're getting a hammer at quarterback. Maybe he's your quarterback too. You're adding on to someone like Lamar or something. Now you've got a great quarterback room. So yeah, give me, if it's like my playoff first, I'll take Dak Prescott if I have a hole at quarterback.
It's not inconceivable that you might have to add a second to that late first with how he's been playing, or even move a mid first. David, first, are you willing to move a mid first or a late first and a second at this point for a guy that you think you're going to get 2 to 3 years out of as a starter?
I think that's kind of stretching towards my upper limit. So, kind of like I talked about with Amon-Ra, it's certain context I could see it, but typically I would try not to. That's or mid first. I like something with a little more stability, a little more long-term value.
You say mid first, if I'm pretty confident it's not playoffs, I probably don't send it. But if I think it's like a low-end seeded playoff team, I think then, yeah, I would do that. But I mean, just thinking about it, like we're seeing how Stafford is playing right now. And if you get 4 more years out of Dak for a late first and he's a high-end to mid-range QB1, I think that's going to be really valuable for your roster. Because, I mean, quarterbacks, we're looking 4 first, 5 first for a lot of these high-end guys. So, because, I mean, how many guys really have 24 points per game in their range of outcomes other than like the high-end rushing guys? It's not that many. It's like Mahomes and Burrow. I guess Stafford is doing it right now as well at his age. Crazy enough. So yeah, I would like to definitely buy Dak. You're not going to get a lot more bang for your buck at quarterback than Dak Prescott right now, or Matthew Stafford, which he's not on our list, but I think he's definitely somebody that you could look to buy if you don't have a first.
Yeah, would be happy to move a early, probably not 201, but a non-playoff second for Stafford very happily if you can afford to. It's just most teams that have Stafford are competing, so that's another reason why we decided not to put Stafford on here. Is there's not a whole lot of teams I've seen in my leagues that have Stafford that are not in the playoffs because they got so much value out of that asset right there. Another asset that people have gotten a lot of value out of. In fact, all the teams where I have Devontae Adams, it's crazy. I'm currently the 1 seed, in those leagues because a guy that I was hoping for wide receiver 2 production is giving me wide receiver 1 production, 16.6 points per game, almost 33 years old, but does not look like he's really lost lost a step when you've seen his like release off the line of scrimmage. He just gets open right away. Like he's so quick still. It's incredible watching him. He's just a craftsman of a route runner. The playoff matchups, Detroit, Seattle, then Atlanta. Seattle is a bottom like 25th to 50th percentile matchup, but I have no doubt that a week 16 matchup where we're looking at the divisions on the line, potentially, that they're going to be, full throttle. The other two matchups I think are great for a wide receiver, so I could see him winning people money in championships as well. We have that price as an early second. We added a little plus there because we know that a lot of people really want a late first for him. If I have the playoff bye and I'm sending a late first for Adams, I want a little bit back, whether that's actually getting like a third back or something like that. But I'm probably willing to send a late first for him. I just either need to get something else back or be able to buy another guy at a price that I like as part of that deal to feel like I'm getting something from it. But to be honest with you, I said about a month ago in a video we had, Davante Adams is probably worth a late first. I'm just not willing to pay it till closer to the playoffs. We are at that point where if I know I'm making the playoff at this point and I'm trying to get that hammer in my lineup for the playoff matchups. I have the bye. I want to have the bye. I want that first to be a bye team's first to make it. I can finally see doing it. Curious if you guys agree or if you're not quite there.
Yeah, I definitely understand that rationale. And if you need wide receiver specifically, I could see maybe doing it. I like buying them for the early second plus. I like doing that. I think a late first, I might prefer to buy a running back or a couple other players in this tier with the age, but his points per game is really, really strong. So I can't fault you. Like you said, I would want a little bit back. If I'm really having to make the decision, give me a little bit back, and I think that might swing me.
Yeah, it's hard for me to spend a first on a player like Davante. That's not really how I do things. I do like to win, though, so maybe you could convince me there are times when I might do it.
I want to remind you this time last year, I definitely think what you're saying is right. I remember this time last year, you had a lot of playoff teams losing in round 1 or 2, I think. And you're like, I just wish I was pushed in, right? I just remember that right now.
I've been a lot more aggressive this year, but there's still a line where I don't think you should go over. And I do think when you're talking about your first, you got to be very careful because you're burning this first for Devontae. Is he going to be valuable next year? Maybe, probably, but after that, and it's never going to be close to a first again. But look, I actually have some positive things I really wanted to say about him. A little sad that we had to take such a negative tone with my response to Devontae. I'm going to get some of that in here real quick, though. Leads the NFL in red zone targets inside the 15, targets inside the 10, targets inside the 5. This is crazy. Inside the 5, he has 14 targets. Second in the NFL has 6. That's just crazy.
He separates instantaneously at 33 years old. It's crazy.
I love his release, and I'm not a film guy, but that's always been one of my favorite things about him. 13th in the NFL in targets overall too. So I get it, and I expect him to be a beast down the stretch. But man, the first has to have some long-term value for me. It's part of my long-term plans. That's just not typically part of my process.
Yeah, I definitely understand. I mean, if he's lost, maybe even a half a step, I think playing with Stafford in a top 5 offense is mitigating that because he was like the best wide receiver in the league just a couple years ago, and I don't think he's that far off from where he was. So yeah, I definitely understand your rationale there. But moving on to the other wide receiver in our tier here, we're looking at A.J. Brown, and we got his price at about a late first, and he was probably like 2 firsts at the beginning of the season, and the passing offense for the Eagles just has not been what we were hoping for A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. I do think it's been a little bit better lately here for A.J. Brown. I think the crying that we've talked about at times with Davante Adams is maybe working a little bit here. Because, I mean, just this last game, he had a strong game. He got 6+ targets in 7 out of 10 games. Last 2 weeks, he's really been on fire in particular here. And he does have good playoff matchups. I mean, the Las Vegas and Washington matchups, they're really strong. If you were able to see our screen, maybe you're not. But those are both bright green matchups on Sleeper. So they're, 75th percentile to 100th percentile matchups. So, yeah, they really could just try to establish, hey, we're that connection, especially between Hurts and A.J. Brown. Like, hey, we're good going to the playoffs. Let's get that thing right. Even if they're killing the Raiders or something, they might still just, keep throwing the ball. So, yeah, I think for the talent of a guy at 28.4 and the ceiling that we've seen before, he could still be a guy that's productive for your team for another 4 years or so. Maybe he does see a change of scenery in the next year or two also that could help his value. So for a late first, I think the value has tumbled far enough to where I'm definitely one to buy at that price.
I'm a big investor in AJ Brown. I have a lot of him on my roster. So I'm personally not buying him, but I'm also not selling him at all because I think that the value that he offers to my team at a late first down the stretch this season and then for 2 to 3 more years, right? Like if this is all I can get for him, and I'm going to tell you because I tried to shop him around, I'm not even sure I can get this for him in every league. Like if I'm selling him, I think he's a phenomenal buy because I do feel confident in him as a football player. Like, I think he's going to be somebody that I can have as my wide receiver. If he's my wide receiver 1, I don't feel great about it. But if he's my wide receiver 2 or 3, I feel very good about that being a solid contending team. I know it's been disappointing at times this year, but I do believe that he is going to help people win championships down the stretch, me included.
I'm more willing to pay a late first for A.J. Brown than Devontae Adams, even though Devontae should probably outscore A.J. Brown down the stretch. And that's because I feel like I can get like 2 to 3 years of quality production where, I mean, it might not be wide receiver 1 quite, but a guy that I can plug in and feel confident in. And, if I have to rebuild, I can still sell for something that can help my rebuild. Maybe it's not a first anymore, but maybe it's a pair of seconds or a second and another player. I'm a little more open to that. It's still tough just because of, I don't know, the stink around that whole situation right now. But they've got a nice schedule. He's starting to put it together, and he is a stud. So yeah, I think I'm a little more willing to spend that late first there. My question for you guys: how do we feel about his teammate Devonta Smith? Same boat? Do we prefer one to the other? They're obviously different players, but they're both about the same as far as fantasy is concerned through my eyes.
We had discussed, honestly, just putting both players' pictures on the screen as a late first buy. They're both pretty inconsistent this season so far. I do think Devonta Smith has maybe even been, better than AJ Brown. I think I probably prefer Devonta Smith to AJ Brown for the same reason you prefer AJ Brown to Devonta Adams. He's just a little bit younger, and I play Dynasty with a 3 to 5 year kind of mindset, something like that. For that reason, I think I do prefer Devonta Smith slightly. I think he's also going to be slightly more expensive than AJ Brown. I'd probably reach out to both managers, see what I can do, and I'm happy taking either because this is going to sound crazy, but that schedule right there we were talking about, it's the same for both those guys. So I'm definitely happy to buy either of them. JP, kind of the same mindset there, or do you prefer Brown to Smith any differently, or is it Smith over Brown for you as well?
I'm honestly, I think the rest of the season, I might prefer AJ Brown just because we have seen those stretches where he's putting up close to 20 points per game, and we haven't seen as much of that from Devonta Smith. I just think that AJ Brown's so good, and I don't want to completely write off that. I think that there was an injury at the beginning of the year that he was dealing with. I think it was a lower body injury. He even missed a game also. So I don't think that we should completely write off that. Right now, the ascension might be that he is healthy as well as the connection, getting back on track with Jalen Hurts. So I don't know. I think he still could soar. I'd say they're probably pretty close when I'm, adjusting for the rest of the season expectation that I have and also the age.
Devonta Smith has 20 points against the Rams, 19.4 against Denver, 33.3 against Minnesota, and then 14.4, 16.9, and 14.9 in 3 of his last 4 games. Did have a 1.8 point dud against Detroit, but that game was so weird. I'm pretty willing to write that one off. He's been very solid all year in all honesty. Wide receiver 15 in points per game, not in points per game, in total points. So I kind of disagree. I want to push back a little bit on that, what you're saying just about like hasn't had that ceiling. He's shown that ceiling somewhat, has been many times the better wide receiver, I think, in games this year. But I do agree that I think I would bet on AJ Brown slightly over Smith rest of season, but it's pretty close to a coin flip for me.
Yeah, I'm more so like AJ Brown. He had that stretch where he broke the record from like most 100-plus receiving yard games a year or so ago. He just had that ceiling where he could just catch fire and be the most dominant wide receiver in the league. But on a weekly basis, yeah, Devontae, he definitely is. He can have a huge game as well.
Yeah, I think I maybe slightly prefer Devonta Smith, but big picture portfolio-wise, I'm kind of treating them the same. I'll pay a late first if I have the need and their availability is there. And if they're both there, I'll go for Devonta Smith first and AJ Brown second. But if I get one or the other, I'm pretty happy. Next player on this list, honestly, had I known how we were going to do this, I would have switched to running backs because I would much rather talk about the other one here. I think he's a better buy. But how can you go wrong with old King Henry going down the playoff stretch? You know what I mean? This guy's almost 32 years old, so there's a little bit of concern there for me that this is just a rental for this playoff stretch. My goodness, we all know if you're watching this show, you've followed football for a while. Derrick Henry in December, right? Like Derrick Henry in snow games. There are just some insane highlights, some insane memories. That 99-yard touchdown against the Jags, I believe, was down the stretch. He's had some great games. So this guy can win you money. He can win you championships. He's done it before. Baltimore's going to have to win their games. They're pretty much going to have to win out, or at least that's the mindset they need to have. So I think they're going to have to lean on him, and he's going to have to come through. So with that in mind, I think he's a good buy for your playoff push. Again, back to my process, putting a plus on an early second for a guy like this is difficult for me, though.
I just think it's the people who have him probably want a first for him. It's going to be tough to get for, even if it is an early second, just a second from a lot of players. I don't think I could pay a first for him, even though I said maybe I could for Adams, which is crazy because they're the same guy. It's the same picture, just a different position. It's a 1-year rental that you're hoping to get a second year from. It's tough to pay more than an early second, but I do think you need to pay that early second because I do think he is going to smash down the stretch. JP, any differing opinion there?
Yeah, I think that the Ravens down the stretch, like they're very desperate for wins. So I think they got things back on track. And in a winning game script, he's a lot more valuable because when you're trailing, he's not on the field as much. And they had a lot of games earlier in the year where they were trailing and he was not on the field. So I don't expect that to be the norm, though. So honestly, I think that he's going to be a pretty good buy. But to pay a late first, I'm not quite there. About an early second, I think I would do that.
Yeah, I think if it is that late first, I'm trying to go elsewhere, whether it's Josh Jacobs, check in with the manager. Maybe they're panicking about the injury. See if you can get Kyron Williams. Maybe they're worried about Devontae Adams taking all the touchdowns, or another guy that we as a podcast actually feel comfortable paying that late first for because he's younger. We've seen him produce pretty well, and the schedule down the stretch for Chase Brown that David wanted to talk about is phenomenal. I will say the Baltimore matchup twice in week 13 and 15. Baltimore has changed a lot as a defense. They've gotten a lot healthier. I don't think that they are as juicy of a matchup, but I still think that they're going to have to be throwing to Chase Brown to try to keep up, right? They're going to run through the air to Chase Brown against Baltimore, and I think they're going to be successful. Then Buffalo, Miami, and Arizona, all juicy matchups, all green matchups right there. And this is a guy that started off horribly because the offense was horrible once Burrow went out and has just been phenomenal recently. EPRing his way, lots of receptions. And he's a guy that if you look at this roster, right, this roster is their defense is terrible. Their offensive line is bad. I don't see any world. They probably take a running back in the 4th or 5th round. They might sign a running back in free agency, but I think Chase Brown has a shot at being the starter again next year pretty well. Like I'd put it well above a 50. I'd put it like 60 to 65% chance if I had to like that he's going to be there again next year. So I'm very happy to pay that late first for him. I'd prefer to go higher up the totem pole, like I said, see if I can get Jacobs, something like that instead, if that manager is panicking. But I think Chase Brown's at this price point is actually, I don't think you can get Jacobs for that most of the time. I do think you can get Chase Brown for that late first because people wrote him off at some point this year. And once people have written a player off, they're now just happy to just cash out, which isn't a bad process if you're not competing. But I think he's a great buy.
Yeah, I mean, the schedule is probably the best that we've highlighted. Just when you're looking at, like you said, Baltimore might be better, but just if anybody we've shown, it's a full green schedule right now. And if you look at his stretch last year with Joe Burrow there from week 9 on, he had at least 13 points every single game from week 9 on. The last 4 games here, he's had 15 plus in the last 4. So yeah, he's heating up here a little bit, and Joe Burrow might just be even better for him. We'll see. I mean, like I said, last year he was really good. And with the matchups combined with that, yeah, I would not be surprised at all if he's a guy that's scoring, close to what we're seeing from Devontae Adams. So that's kind of what I was saying earlier is I'd rather pay that late first for a guy like this that I think could have more of a long-term, stability to my Dynasty roster. Because if he does play really good down the stretch, maybe they'll look to extend it potentially. If they take a day 3 back, I mean, it's like the Blake Corum thing. Now Taj Brooks. And these day 3 guys have not been really like taken over these running backs that have shown that they can handle it as an RB1. So I don't think this RB draft class is like super strong or super deep. I think it's a pretty solid class, but not one that's scaring me for Chase Brown.
I believe, wasn't Chase Brown a day 3 pick himself? Just saying. I want to talk about him for a reason. You guys pretty much covered all of them. Great schedule coming up. He's been coming on very strong lately, just under 20 points per game over the last 4 weeks. Top 12 finish each of those weeks. Burrow's coming back, like we said. P. Ryan's been out. He's playing like 80% of the snaps during that span. Actually, over 80% of the snaps, probably closer to 90, to be honest. I guess, Justin, you said you put it at like, what, 65% chance that he's their RB1 next year? I think I'd put it closer to 80. Why would they replace a guy playing like this when they have so many other needs? I guess it's the NFL, so I'm leaving a little wiggle room, but it just doesn't make sense to me. He's 25. He's a good player. He's cheap. He's under contract. At least I think next year is the last year, I believe, but I didn't double check that before we recorded. Don't hold me on that. So yeah, this is a guy I like playing a late first for. This is perfect for me. He's going to help me win this year, and I have confidence he'll help me at least next year.
I really think the only way they replace him is through free agency because they can't afford to pay draft capital to do it. I wouldn't be crazy to see like a Rico Dowdle, Javonte Williams, ETN, Kenneth Walker III, right? There's a lot of names that could hit the market that but that's the only way. If he survives free agency and people are worried about the draft, I'm going to probably actually be buying at that point. But that's not what we're trying to give advice on. JP, now that I'm trying to derail our podcast, can you talk to us about another contender buy?
Yeah, let's keep this thing rolling here. We're going to talk about second tight end here, and that's going to be George Kittle. I think he's a phenomenal buy right now. He had that dud in week 7 against Atlanta when he first came back. But honestly, we probably shouldn't have been playing him when he first, was coming off injury anyways, unless we were desperate. So, you're looking at 17 points per game, tight end 6, and that's with the dud, which I don't think is going to happen again. I saw a lot of injury doctors talking about, they saw him running and he was just not as explosive, and I think he's actually healthy now. Brandon Ayuk, there's that whole saga of if he's going to play again at all. I think with that in the mix as well as a really strong playoff schedule. Look, I think if you have a first-round playoff bye, he's probably the best buy on the screen. Because week 16 and 17 is very juicy. Week 15 is not. That's the playoff buy time, though. So, I would not be surprised at all. We've seen him do it time after time again, have stretches where, a whole half a season where he's a tight end 3, tight end 2 on the year. So I would not be surprised if he does that the rest of the year here. So big time buy for me here at an early second price point.
And I think more or less we can just add the same thing that we said about Adams and Henry to it, right? Early second, he's 32, probably not the right process to pay a first for him, even if it is a late first. David, anything really to add there?
I just kind of wanted to echo JP's point about him being a great buy for someone who's looking very good in their positioning, that not only if you have the bye, do you skip the tough matchup and get the 2 fat matchups? The week 14 bye doesn't really worry you if you're already in good positioning. Not only that, but the person with him might need that week 14 win, so you might get him at a little discount. So he's someone I would be looking into for sure.
All right, so our last category is going to be more all in on a budget. Say you've sold the farm already, you're out of firsts. Well, we know that happens. We're here to help you as well. We're going to be talking about what we call our discount or bargain bin buys. So thirds or seconds, depending. We know you might not be able to get this for these players in every league. So let's also just try to briefly mention our ceiling price on this guy as well. David, can you say our first guy in this category?
Sure. Yeah, we got Jacoby Brissett. Now, he's been a starter for 6 weeks there. 24.5 points per game. That is really good. If you remember, Jackson Dart was at like 25.4, I think, maybe. And he would have been quarterback 1. I think this puts Jacoby at QB2, roughly it would be if you were to just insert him. During that span, 29.2 completions, 43.5 attempts per game, 323 yards per game, 1.8 touchdowns. He has been probably one of the, if not the best, one of the best pickups you could have had for redraft, especially if Superflex leagues, obviously. We've got any third here, early thirds, I'm willing to pay 301. I don't care if it's locked and loaded 301. If I need a quarterback that I'm going to start, I'm willing to pay that as long as I'm starting him. I'd consider a late second. I'd consider 2/3. I might do a little shopping outside of that, but I just don't see them turning back to Kyler. These guys are fighting for their jobs. That coaching staff could be let go if they make the wrong decision here. I think it's Jacoby's season to ride out here, and the way he's playing, man, I think he's a plug and play, especially at your super flex. So yeah, I'll pay a little bit.
I do think that you can get him for this third very potentially now, but that price point will go up as soon as Kyler is eligible to return and isn't returning, which is coming up pretty quickly here, right? People are moving him for a third because they assume Kyler's coming back. Some people that, I mean, like just the ballers, I listen to them every week, a few times a week, and they said they'd be shocked if Kyler comes back and Brissett is benched. And if you tell me Brissett's going to be starting the rest of the season, like that's worth a second, a late second, not a non-playoff second. We don't know that for sure. So there's the baked-in risk right now. So that's why I'd be trying to buy before that news comes in, because while Houston is a bad matchup week 1 of the playoffs, Atlanta just gave up 450 yards to Bryce Young pretty recently, right? Cincinnati gives up 450 yards to every quarterback. So that is he could win you a lot of money in weeks 2 and 3 of the playoffs. Houston week 1, I'd probably be trying to sit him, but love the schedule there. Next player, Wan'Dale Robinson, any third, averaging 13.6 points per game, puts him at wide receiver 20. A pretty nice series of matchups. Again, we see that week 14 bye. Not necessarily something, this is a tough one, right? Because you're probably buying him because you're pretty thin at wide receiver, and then he has a week 14 bye. So if you are buying him, make sure that you weren't looking for him to be a bye week filler for you, right? In the one remaining bye week. But if you can afford this, the playoff matchups, there's a couple decent ones. Green matchups against Washington, Las Vegas. Minnesota's not typically a great matchup for wide receivers, but it's just a situation of if you have lost wide receivers and you want a cheap guy, this is a good one, right? I'm not paying a second for him. If I can't get him for a third, I'm just going to other guys that are averaging somewhere between 10 to 13 points per game and trying to add a third to him. We're not telling you Wan'Dale Robinson is a must buy. We're telling you that for a third, sure, I like this guy better than a lot of other guys that also might cost a third. If it gets to be that second, we're shopping at other guys that can probably get you 10 to 13 points. You guys agree on that?
Yeah, no, definitely. And let me shock you guys. I'm looking at points per game. You want to know the 2 players he's sandwiched between in points per game at wide receiver? Justin Jefferson and Devontae Smith. That's crazy. I know Justin Jefferson has underperformed, but yeah, Wan'Dale's been pretty good. 13.6 points per game isn't gonna win you your league. But if you need a flex play, you're not doing a whole lot better than that for any third. But Justin, let me ask you, if they told you Jameis Winston starting the rest of the year, Jackson Dart's on IR, are you doing at least a 2-3 swap for Wan'Dale if you need?
Maybe, but I also want that guy Gunner or whatever who threw the touchdown. I want everybody there if Jameis is starting. It's just obviously the number 1 offense in football at that point, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it is a lot of fun to see Jameis Winston out there. I don't know why he was not starting over Russell Wilson to start the year, honestly. But anyways, moving on to our bargain wide receiver 2 here, and that's going to be Troy Franklin, who still only 22.8 years old, and he flopped as a rookie. We were at least had some hope, like this guy looked like a solid prospect, but yeah, he kind of fell on his face. But Troy Franklin, wow, I mean, he kind of was not on my radar anymore, and he's definitely producing now. I mean, you see 12 points per game isn't phenomenal. Honestly, he's had some big games, like he's got a 26.9 points per game. I've seen that there's been many weeks he's led this team in first read target share as well, and he does have a pretty good scheduled for the rest of the year. So if you're trying to make a playoff push and you really need a guy and you don't have any capital, he's probably the guy you want to target here, because I mean, a couple of really good matchups. Week 17 isn't great, but I mean, at that point, if you're in the championship, maybe you can make a move that week. So yeah, I think that he's a solid buy. We have him listed as a late second for a guy who's 22.8, and theoretically could ascend a little bit. I think that's fine.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I actually asked you earlier today, David, what your price point on Troy Franklin was, because there's one league, best ball league I'm in, where he was on the trade block for any second, and I ended up setting my 27 second. I feel pretty confident I'll be a playoff contender next year. I'm a playoff contender this year. Good young core, and he's just been doing great. I don't remember which of you said he's got 8+ targets in 5 straight games. That's what you want, right? He's outperforming Cortland Sutton right now, and I mean, are we willing to pay a late second for Cortland Sutton even right now? I don't really think I am. I prefer Troy Franklin at that price, right? If they cost the same, give me Troy Franklin. So I really like this buy. He's a guy I bought today, day of recording, for a 27 second.
Yeah, especially in best ball, I love buying him for a late second. 22 years old, has some chemistry with Bo Nix. They are not official, but essentially they are brothers. Troy Franklin grew up with him, if you didn't know that. So, or not grew up, but eventually in their childhoods they started living together. I don't know the exact dates, but they're very close people. So I could see this lasting a while. I could see Troy Franklin maybe taking a discount to stay with Bo Nix, which would really help long term. Look, he's out targeted Sutton on 5 of the 11 games, and they've tied in 2 more. So that means Sutton's only out targeted him in 4 of the 11 games. He might be the receiver one, and like I think we all agree that's probably a position that the Broncos address heavily in the offseason. But I think Troy Franklin could be a long term part of those plans too. And like I was saying, like Justin said, I was talking about before we started recording, 5 straight games, 8+ targets, and over that span, he's over 15 points per game. So if you can get him for a late second, or certainly if you can get him cheaper than that, I think he's a great buy. And with that, we'll move on to our first running back bargain buy, and that's Kenny Gainwell. He is maybe the most volatile player on this list. He could definitely give you some duds coming up over these next 5 weeks. But look, if you're buying a guy to spot start for a third in the playoffs, you're obviously a little bit desperate, right? Last 2 weeks, 29.5, 18.2 weeks. Those 2 weeks help you win weeks, so they could help you win in the playoffs. But it's less than 10 carries per game. That being said, he did also add 6.5 receptions per game over the last 2 weeks, averaging a little bit over 100 total yards. I don't feel great about sliding him into my flex, but I think you could also do a lot worse, especially when you're looking at week 14 bye weeks that are coming up. You got injuries that always pop up. So I don't love this buy, but I think you can do a lot worse for using a third to get a spot start in your playoff matchups.
I think if Warren is gone for any amount of time, Gainwell is worth a second easily down the stretch, right? I think you can flex Gainwell any week, and you're not going to get goosed, but you might wind up with 6 points. You also might wind up with 20 points. That's scary. There's also a non-zero chance he overtakes Warren down the stretch. He has, I feel like, kind of almost looked better at times, but I also know Warren has had some injury issues he's been struggling with, so it's a tough one. JP, I'm going to ask you, do you prefer him or do you prefer the guy I'm about to talk about here? Do you think Gainwell is a decent buy at this price point, or are you more likely to be going elsewhere?
Yeah, I'm probably more likely to go elsewhere, but honestly, if people, like the next player we're going to talk about, if they're not willing to sell for a third and they want too much, then I could definitely see it. There's probably some dynasty teams out there that is in their last year of competing, and this is the kind of piece that you might need at, just to at least try to make an attempt at winning your league this year. So, yeah, I can't blame some people. I mean, Justin, do you want to go ahead and talk about the next guy? Because he's the guy I would prefer to buy.
Yeah, Devin Neal, I think, is a phenomenal buy. There is some risk that Kamara ends up coming back, and Devin Neal has a great week 13 and 14, and Kamara is the one who actually wins people championships, because this is our second all-green schedule that we are seeing. Both of them are for RBs. The previous one was for Chase Brown. Now, Devin Neal is going to have an all-green schedule. Again, the points per game, they're not great. 5.9 points per game. He's only had one game where he's really boomed, right? And that was the last one where he PPR'd his way, honestly, to any relevancy. He didn't do much on the ground. I think it was like 16 rushing yards. So we haven't even seen him do a lot as a runner yet, even, but we saw him get a lot of volume. And if you get a lot of volume with this type of schedule, you're going to probably, really help people win championships. I don't think I'd say league winner, but I would say at the price, incredibly relevant championship piece, right? Is something that I think we could see for him. It's risky, but at a third, the shot at what he will be, and there's a decent chance they just shut Kamara down. It's an MCL sprain. So that could just be 1 to 2 weeks if it's a grade 1 sprain. As of recording right now, I haven't seen anything specific on it. If it's a grade 2 sprain, then it's going to be pretty much the rest of the season. They've pretty much ruled out a grade 3 sprain because they've said it shouldn't require surgery. I saw somebody report that. So that rules out like for sure season ending. We know that. So it's really, is it that first one where it's 1 to 2 weeks, or is it that later one where it's like 5-ish weeks of time off? To be honest, they might shut Kamara down for either of them. They have nothing else to play for. They might just want to see what do they have from Devin Neal. What do they really get from bringing Kamara back? So for that reason, I'll be honest with you, if we get the news that Kamara has that grade 1 strain, MCL sprain, that's usually 1 to 2 weeks or just a couple week thing, might be able to come back for the last few games of the season, I'm going to actually try to use that in my bargaining, get Neal anyways, and just hope that he comes back. Because if it is for a third, I think it's worth the risk.
Yeah, I mean, I found the Saints. I want to see what I have in him, especially with the age of Alvin Kamara. Like, I think it's really smart. And you got Kendry Miller, who's torn his ACL now. So you just want to figure out what the future of that backfield is going to look like. And like you said, even if Kamara is, he is back. I mean, these are the kind of running backs we want on our roster. And he could be an RB2 for a team for the next 6 years, and he might be worth a second once the guy goes, down ahead of him just sometime in the next few years. So yeah, I don't think it's bad to buy this type of player at all, even with the uncertainty for a third regardless.
I guess my question would be, since we're talking about it this way, is if you're a rebuilder and you've got Devin Neal, are you willing to move him for any third, knowing that Kamara might not be there next year? They've got terrible cap situation. They've got a ton of holes. If he shows out with this week's schedule, maybe he earns a job next year, then he's worth way more than any third.
No, I'm not willing to move him. I'm pretty willing to try to offer any third for him on any situation. Like I might go through tomorrow when I'm at the aquarium with my girlfriend's family and just like sneak off to the bathroom for like half an hour and send off any third for Devin Neal in every league, because I think he's a fantastic buy on any team, because I do think he's going to perform the next couple of weeks. I think at the very least he's going to be worth a second at some point this season is a pretty decent chance, and I'm willing to burn that third out on that hope that I can turn into a second at this point. I think it's not a crazy bet.
I'll save the time for you, Justin. I had Devin Neal in like half of my leagues, and you're in a lot of my leagues, so you don't need to bother with that one. Moving over to Colby Parkinson as our last player to talk about here. This is really just a Tyler Higbee thing and a great offense thing, because in this range, you're not really getting a tight end that's a difference maker. There's not a lot of difference makers at tight end in general. I mean, he is 26.9 years old, so he's a little bit on the younger side here. His points per game isn't anything impressive at tight end 37. But if for like a mid to late third, he's had 3 touchdowns. He's in 3 straight games here. I don't know if I said that right. He's had a touchdown in 3 straight games here. Matthew Stafford is playing at arguably an MVP level. So he's in the mix to score a touchdown every single week, and that's really what you want at tight end, is a touchdown if you don't have one of those top 5 or 6 guys, especially because right now there's Laporta's out. Tucker Kraft is out. There's still some players that have probably flopped on your roster. Maybe, it's you're waiting on a breakout still from a young tight end like Terrence Ferguson or something for some reason. So, yeah, I don't think that you're going to do a whole lot better than Colby Parkinson right now. So pretty good matchups, for the next 5 weeks. Week 17 against Atlanta, it says is red. That doesn't necessarily scare me a whole lot still. But yeah, if you need a guy for cheap, he's the guy we're suggesting here.
Yeah, they're like their tight ends out there. He's got the Higbee injury. I mean, like you said, when you're talking about a tight end at this point, you're hoping to get a guy with a touchdown. He's got good touchdown upside. Obviously, and this is true for most everyone involved, don't go buy this guy if you're not going to start him. If you're not going to start him, don't buy him at all. Like some of the young guys, maybe we're talking some different situations, but yeah, if you're not going to play him, don't buy him. But if you are going to play him, he gives you touchdown upside.
Any tight end with touchdown upside who will probably get a few targets. We're playing a late third, a couple fourth. If it's a mid third, honestly, I'm going elsewhere. If it's like a third that could miss the playoffs, I'm going elsewhere. Honestly, the names at tight end, go for Hunter Henry, go for everyone. Send that late third for everyone. Doesn't hurt to try, but we're not looking to add to that price at all. Last thing we're going to do here before we let you guys go as an audience, we're going to just tell you who is our favorite buy at what price as a contender. So we're going to answer our community question. We just did, right, as a podcast. So we'll all pick one guy. I'm going to stay on this page and I'm going to go Jacoby Brissett for a third. If I can get beef brisket for a third right here, very happy to do so. There's a non-zero chance he's starting there next year if they don't let go of the coaching staff, right? They're probably not going to be in a place to draft a QB. The locker room loves him. He's not the problem right now, is why they're losing, right? Entirely. Like they don't have that great of a team. There's a lot of other holes there. Of course, he's been getting some garbage time points and stuff, just slinging it. And that's where part of that production is coming from. But either way, for a third, a guy who right now is QB2 in points per game over the last stretch, whew, that is some crazy value. So I think he's my favorite buy, honestly. I always like bargains. David, you got a guy ready?
Yeah, I was going to go Chase Brown for late first. I know he had a rough start to the season, so some people might still be balking at that price tag, but the schedule's lining up, the situation's lining up for a very strong run. Here, as we discussed long term, I feel pretty comfortable with him for at least another year or two there in Cincinnati, if not a few. So I'm willing to pay that late first to help me get a championship this year and give me, RB RB, back end RB1, high end RB2 for the next couple of years, kind of what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I'll go on the more expensive tab. George Kittle, I kind of wanted to go with, but if you don't have a first round playoff bye, I don't think he's the one. If you have a first round playoff bye, he would be the guy I would pick. But in a vacuum, I'm going to go with Bucky Irving. I just think that you're getting a little bit of a discount if you get him for less than 2 firsts. I mean, he was 18 points per game, and with the stretch he has coming up here, I honestly think he could be in the 19 to 20 points per game range in these next 5 weeks. So as long as he's healthy, it's a little bit of a risk, but I believe in him as a talent. The production profile was awesome for this guy. Everything was great except for the draft capital and the combine, and he's already bucked those. We shouldn't care about that stuff anymore. So I just think he's a great talent.
I see what you did there with he's already bucked those. I caught that, JP. Your puns never sneak by me. All right. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Dyno Construction Podcast. We hope you found this as helpful for you as it was for us. Please remember to like and subscribe wherever you listen or view. Feel free to answer that community question. Who is your 2026 101 and why in the comments below? And we'll see you next time, guys. Thank you.